Hello there. This will cause an epic pro-Hamas lobby meltdown. Trump wants to clear out Gaza and is sending £2,000 bombs to Israel. Trump has just dropped a bombshell proposal into the laps of the Middle East by saying he wants to clear out Gaza of Palestinians. That's right, he wants to relocate about 1.5 million of the Gaza population into Jordan and Egypt. You know, the two countries that flatly refused to take any refugees from Gaza after October the 7th, 2023, on the basis that Israel would just retake the Gaza Strip as its own once again. But not only that, Trump has also lifted any pause imposed by Biden on sending £2,000 bombs to Israel. This will have the pro-Hamas mob in the UK wailing and frothing at the mouth. I'd rather get involved with some of the Arab nations and build housing at a different location where they can maybe live in peace for a change, Trump told reporters on Air Force One. You're talking about probably 1.5 million people, and we just clean out that whole thing and say, you know, it's over. Here's the audio from the press gaggle, which I've cleaned up a bit by removing the aircraft noise from it to make it a bit clearer.
I'm talking to General El-Sisi tomorrow, sometime I believe, and I'd like Egypt to take people, and I'd like Jordan to take people. You're talking about probably 1.5 million people, and we just clean out that whole thing. It's over the centuries that's many conflicts that side, and I don't know. It's something has to happen, but it's literally a demolition site right now. Almost everything's demolished, and people are dying there. So I'd rather get involved with some of the Arab nations and build housing in a different location where they can maybe live in peace. Temporarily, or it could be either. It could be temporarily, could be long term.
And as you can expect, the pro-Hamas lobby are claiming that Trump wants the ethnic cleansing of Gaza, so a state of Palestine must be recognised immediately in order to stop it. Forgetting that there never was such a beast and that there are no lines of it on any map. In fact, instead of eradicating Israel and forcing Jews out, you could take part of Jordan and part of Egypt and call it Palestine, couldn't you? Albeit geographically separated. And part of Trump's thinking might be that any funds poured into Gaza to rebuild it while Hamas remains in charge there will just mean that the Gaza Strip becomes a bespoke anti-Israel fortress come attack base. Which of course it would do. Unless Hamas is cleared out and has nothing to do with it. While Hamas or any such offshoot exists, there is zero chance that Israel will be able to live in peace with its neighbours, let alone Gaza. In fact, I would say that while the Iranian regime exists as it stands, Israel can expect constant attacks into the future from its proxies, not just in Gaza, but in Syria, Lebanon and Yemen. No wonder Israeli government figures have leapt at Trump's idea and said they'll start drawing up plans for it. Bezalel Smotrich, Israel's finance minister, said, "The idea of helping them find other places to start a new, good life is a great idea. After years of sanctifying terror, they will be able to establish a new, good life elsewhere." Now, the Jordanian and Egyptian governments are not going to agree to something like this without persuasion and assurances, if ever at all. They have made it quite clear that they do not want Gaza refugees. Firstly, they say, because they do not want the people of Gaza shifted out so that Israel can take over there. And secondly, and the more probable reason for refusing to take Gaza refugees is that they will be fully aware that those refugees from Gaza would be more than happy to launch rocket and other attacks into Israel from their new territories in Jordan and in Egypt. They could end up embroiled in fighting anti-Israel terrorists in their own countries, or face Israeli attacks on terrorist bases within their borders. And worse, be forced to take in the pro-Hamas United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees, or UNRWA for short, to work in their countries. Far easier to leave them in Gaza to wallow in the squalor of their own Hamas attacks on Israel. After all, who wants to draw the attention of the pro-Hamas international bodies like the United Nations and the International Criminal Courts? Not only that, but Palestinians have a history in Jordan, a history Jordan does not want to repeat. Now, just for the avoidance of doubt, Israel was founded on the 14th of May 1948 by their own unilateral declaration, when British forces moved out and left it to the United Nations to sort out. Now, the UN plan had been for a partitioned land in Israel between Jews and Arabs. But the Arabs were having nothing to do with that. So 1 month later, in June 1948, Israel was attacked by Lebanon, Syria, Iraq and Egypt, as well as Saudi Arabian forces operating under Egyptian control. The Arab nations thought it would be easy work to throw the Israelis into the Mediterranean Sea. But it did not work out that way. In the end, the Jewish state of Israel ended up being far larger than initially intended, with the newly formed Jordan gaining control over the West Bank and Egypt holding the Gaza Strip. Israel had all the rest. And this is the Nakba, or Great Sorrow, that the Palestinians harp on about. They lost. That is their great sorrow. Now, there are claims that the Palestinians were forced out of Israel by the Israelis during that war. But there are other claims that the Palestinians were told to vacate Israel until Arab forces had expelled the Jews and gained control from the river to the sea, after which they could all return. I'll leave you to decide on that one, as that will be coloured by whether you support the likes of Hamas or you support Israel. But it doesn't stop there. By the late 1960s, relations between Israel and its neighbours, who wanted it destroyed, had sunk very low. And Egypt decided to blockade the Straits of Tiran, so preventing Israel's access to international waters via the Red Sea. Israel considered this a casus belli, an act of war, so between the 5th and 10th of June 1967, Israeli forces prosecuted the Six-Day War against Egypt, initially destroying its air force while taking control of the Sinai Peninsula as well as the Gaza Strip, and attacking Jordan and Syria at the same time, taking the West Bank and the Golan Heights. And the Gaza Strip stayed under Israeli control until 2005, when they vacated it due to being ungovernable. So they sealed Gaza off, and 2 years later Hamas was voted in, and no election has taken place in the Strip since. The Israelis have, since 2007, had to endure rocket attacks from inside Gaza and have conducted surgical strikes in there to take out Hamas operators and their rocket launchers. But it was the October the 7th, 2023 attack by Hamas inside Israel that was the final straw. And you only have to look at the history of the region and the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas declarations to understand those organisations will never ever live in peace with their neighbours. Not ever. And bear in mind, Israel allowed workers to travel every day from Gaza into Israel for gainful employment, as well as providing healthcare and water for them. But it turns out that many of those workers were engaged in espionage by reporting back to Hamas about where the civilian houses were, which ones had children in them, and all about their safe rooms. Information Hamas used to lethal and inhuman effect on October the 7th, 2023. Hamas also used the water pipes as rocket launchers. Now, be in no doubt that had Hamas not built a huge anti-Israel infrastructure in Gaza and had not attacked Israel on October the 7th in the manner it did, Gaza would not now be in ruins. That is a simple fact. All made worse by Hamas terrorists hiding behind children and stealing all the aid food, while their bosses lived in opulence in places like Qatar. They could have instead lived in peace, and none of that carnage would ever have happened. They would be looking at homes and hospitals, not at ruins. The Iranian proxy Hamas is and always was the problem, at least since 2007 anyway. Hamas is the organisation that still needs eliminating. And finally, a quick reminder that there are only 6 days to go until the Stop the Isolation, Fight for Tommy rally in London on Saturday the 1st of February. Be in Sandell Street opposite the Waterloo Station entrance outside the Union Jack Club for 12 noon on Saturday. See you there.